Welcome to Response Able Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the Response Able Parenting podcast. Let's get into it. Hello. I hope you are having a beautiful summer. I am excited to be back in the podcasting seat and chatting with you. We are into the Fast Way to Regulate Live Challenge, and I am thrilled to be in there with you guys. Listen, if you haven't joined yet, that's okay. Hop in. You don't have to be on the exact same day that everybody else is. It is a self-led course. You can take your time. If you're on day 1 and somebody else is on day 14, not a big deal at all. I'm still going to be in there. I'm going to be answering your questions in the comments. So if you're commenting on day 1 and somebody is commenting on day 14, that's okay. I will still be there able to support you. So essentially during the Fast Way to Regulate Challenge, what we are going to do is you, my darling, are going to learn exactly why and where you get triggered the most. Massively helpful. We are going to start to learn and unpack our patterns and figure out and get better and better at reading those internal sensations and cues in our body so that we know, oh my gosh, this is exactly where I start to lose my cool. This is where I flip my lid. This is where I start to lose my shit and yell at my kids, right? So we're going to start to learn what those patterns are. And then we are going to learn how and what feels great to us to put that pattern interrupter before we flip our lid, before we lose our cool, before we start yelling and follow that same negative pattern that we have found ourselves in for so long. On top of that, we're really gaining a tremendous amount of education on what's going on in our body, what's going on for our children. We're learning the art and the science of nervous system regulation. You're learning a crap ton of systems that are going to help not only you, but they are going to set your family up for success. You're going to learn communication skills. You're going to learn strategies to get your children engaged in this process. Honestly, it is so wonderful. And it is 100% parent focused. So I'm not going to be teaching you all these things that you have to then teach your children. It's all focused on you, learning how to regulate your body, slow yourself down so that you create an internal sense of safety so that you can project that out. And actually, as we are the barometers of the household, you can take the temperature down in the house just because of the work that you do in this challenge. It's massive. It's awesome. And I am so excited to see you there. So the information is in the show notes. Just go ahead and join the challenge. Now, it will be included in your community membership if you want to go ahead and just become a community member to get everything else I have ever created and ever done and anything I will do in the future. That will be just yours to access. Or you can just go ahead and purchase this on its own and have it as a standalone program that you go back to time and time and time again. All right, let's dive into boundaries today. So we talked about boundaries last week, and we really dove in hard about what boundaries are, why they are challenging, what's the difference between boundaries, consequences, and punishments. Like we went into all of that. But I wanted to kind of go in a little bit further and talk about why boundaries are so challenging to hold as women, as mothers. And there's a lot to this. I'm just going to tackle one part of it. And that is honestly our need for external validation. And I think that this is a missing piece when we are talking about boundaries. Like, yes, in theory, having a value, let's say safety, sounds awesome, something I definitely want to teach my children. And then putting a little bubble around it makes total sense. Okay. But when the rubber meets the road, when the shit hits the fan and our kids cross that boundary line, cross our comfort level, why is it so hard for me to impose a consequence? Why is it so hard for me to hold this boundary line? And I think a large part comes down to our need to please everybody and also our need to have the external eyes that are viewing our parenting and having commentary on our parenting, having their approval, people pleasing, the external compass that we have used for a large part of our lives to guide our decisions, to help us, feel like whether or not we're on the right path. We have been using the external to guide us for so long that now, as we're moving into this empowered motherhood, where we're kind of in that perimenopause stage where we're like, oh, I actually don't care anymore about any of this stuff. It really changes how we are approaching situations. And now when boundaries are being crossed, we're in this tricky, sticky situation where we're like, wait, I'm a people pleaser. I've always looked to the external to guide my decisions, but I'm in charge of this boundary line. And so it's very confusing how to hold it. It's confusing how to hold it while holding the feelings of my child and not letting them spin out of control and take over the whole situation. And then that's now the focus. And now we're not talking about the boundary anymore. And so I invite you to kind of look at this and say, where is it tricky for me to hold this boundary line? Is it when my child pushes back against me and says something along the lines of, you're a terrible mother, or I hate you, or none of my friends have to deal with this, or you're the worst, or why don't you do this with my brother, right? And their criticism of you, is that bringing out your discomfort in holding the boundary? And let's look at that a little bit further. Let's unpack that a little bit further, because that is likely more of the root of why it's hard for you to hold the boundary versus just the fact that it's the boundary. Okay, let's look about people pleasing. Are you looking around and trying to make sure everybody's feelings and needs are taken care of first before your comfort is matched, before you are able to hold the boundary line? Because the boundary is what you're willing to tolerate. Is it the people pleasing aspect that's making it hard to hold a boundary? Like you're really concerned about making sure that your child's feelings are fully able to be expressed, and that is creating a whole mess, right? That is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and that a new boundary line is being crossed. So now we're kind of like, oh my God, like I want to honor their feelings. I want them to have a free space and a safe space to feel their feelings. And I feel like that's kind of getting out of control. And so now I'm operating on two boundary systems, right? They crossed the original boundary. And now I have to deal with a new boundary of how big their external expression of frustration gets, right? So where am I missing the mark there? And then we start to second guess ourselves, and we start to question ourselves, and we start to go through that sort of like self-limiting belief process of, I'm messing this up, I can't figure this out, what's wrong with me? Go back to the worth stuff. Something I'm super guilty of is that external validation. So looking to others to constantly tell me whether or not I'm on the right path, right? We can do this if we're looking to our friends, if we're looking to our neighbors and watching how they're parenting, if we're looking to our parents and they have commentary, or our in-laws and they have commentary on our parenting, right? And we want to make sure that we're still sturdy, we're still towing the line, we're still following in some of the traditional ways that make us, quote unquote, look good to them, but it doesn't feel in alignment to the way we want to parent now. And so that can feel really chaotic. And now we're like, I don't really know if I want to hold this boundary, right? So it can be really, really challenging when we have all these different things swirling in our brains on a regular basis. We have the influence of social media. We have the influence of our past. We have this deep desire to do things differently. And at the same time, we don't know how to do things differently. We see a 90-second clip and we're like, that's how I'm going to do it. But when we're in the middle of the moment, we're like, I don't understand how to do this. How did this person on the 90-second clip do that? That makes no sense. So it really comes back to creating that system where we have, maybe you start with one value. Maybe you just start with one value, and maybe that is kindness. Maybe that's listening. Maybe that's cooperation. Come up with any value that feels aligned with what you really like, your stickiest thing. Maybe that's safety, right? Maybe it's just straight up safety. And then you guys all as a family discuss what safety looks like. Safety could be literally like, we don't raise our voice at each other because it feels so unsafe to me. That could be a part of safety, right? Safety feels like we're not hurting each other's bodies. Absolutely. That's part of safety. Safety can also be like, we need to make sure that we are following a proper bedtime because it is safer for your brain when you have, 8 hours, 10 hours of sleep versus 6, right? So, whatever it looks like to you, focus in on one value. Let's start super small. You don't need to have 5. Let's focus on one value. Pick one that is what you want to zero in and teach with your kids. Values are a way to teach. It's a way to teach a system to live by, kind of like an internal code, right? So let's get one value. Then we're going to draw a circle around that value and we're going to create what's called that boundary line, that limit or that line. What is tolerable inside that boundary line of what do those activities look like? What are tolerable actions? What are tolerable words? What does it look like to stay within the boundary line of that value that you chose? Now go through that exercise with your kids. Now go through what it looks like to cross that boundary. Hitting crosses that boundary of safety. Screaming at each other, saying nasty words, that crosses that boundary line, right? Doing flailing around when you're upset and possibly hurting yourself or others, that crosses that boundary line of safety. If you're in a fit of rage and you break something in the house, that crosses that boundary line of safety. So we now get to talk to our children, hey, this is what it looks like to go outside that boundary line. So now we have one value that we are working on. We've established what it looks like to stay inside the boundaries, to live with inside. People, you hear this all the time, live based off values. Like you live into your values, right? It's because you're staying inside the boundary line. Now, if we go outside the boundary line, we cross the boundary, what does that look like? We have that list too. Now, your children are helping you with this. I remember when I was doing the safety one with my kids, they said stepping in lava would be outside the boundary line of safety. Absolutely, 10 out of 10, 100% outside that boundary line. Also, unlikely. And did I have a dream that night that they stepped in lava? Sure did. Clearly, because why wouldn't my brain go there? But so we're engaging with them. They now know what it looks like to live with inside that value. They now know what it looks like to live outside of that value. And then let's talk about, okay, what does it look like as a unit, as a team, when you cross that boundary, when you go outside of that value? What does it look like? It's 2025 and there is more parenting advice than ever before. Yet we're still confused, stuck, and defaulting back to the way our parents raised us in the 80s and 90s. Parenting has evolved since then, and it's time your strategies do too. Welcome to the Response Able Parenting community. This is where you get the support you're looking for so you can make fast, positive, and long-term change in your household. Inside my community, you get access to my signature course, Stuck to Strong, your emotional regulation roadmap to raising ADHD and strong-willed kids. You have my Fast Way to Regulate challenge, giving you 30 days of nervous system work to completely rewire how you react to the stress of parenting. On top of that, you have weekly opportunities to connect with me and get personalized support on issues that challenged you that week. You also have quarterly workshops, bite-sized mini lessons to keep you motivated, and everything I add for as long as you're a member. This is your place to filter out all the noise and get practical strategies that work. Join the community today and start feeling relief as early as tonight. What do you see me doing? What should I be doing for you? My son will say something like, he'll be like, I don't know, you should take away my opportunity to tinker with my engineering stuff. I'm like, bro, I'm not going to take away the things that are actually really helpful for you. I'm not going to take away your regulators, right? So something like, hey, what does it look like? Would you need more support from me in that process? And in the heat of the moment, let's be really honest. You don't like it when I come in and give you a hug. Okay. So we know that we don't like it when mom gives you a hug in that moment, but what would feel really supportive? What would feel supportive in those moments? You get the opportunity to really hear from your kids about what they think would be supportive in those moments. Now we're establishing actually like a protocol of what to do when we go outside the value systems. We're agreeing upon it. So we're not just throwing this imposed frantic, oh my God, somebody's watching me. They must think I'm a horrible parent. Oh my gosh, but I want to make sure their feelings are being my feelings are, I'm frantic right now. I don't know what to do. And then we threaten and we throw this, huge thing out there that we can't even follow through with. Meanwhile, if we just took some time in the front end and we create a strategy and a protocol system of what to do when this value is being pushed against, when the boundary line is being pushed against, then we actually are able to follow through in a much cleaner way where we don't have to have that frantic energy behind it, that external validation behind it, that people pleasing energy behind it, that internal chaos of, I don't know what to do. Because we've set up our framework, we've set it up. And if we find that, a new one crops up, we get that opportunity to discuss it and say, this was another example of what it looks like to cross this safety boundary line. So, how are we going to manage it when this happens again? Because the way that went down didn't feel good for me, didn't feel good for you. This allows us, oh my gosh, this allows us to truly hold boundaries in a way that teaches, in a way that connects, in a way that regulates nervous systems, in a way that has lifelong implications of real, tangible cause and effect. This truly is how we raise empowered, intellectual, emotionally intelligent children, because we're talking about things that matter, which are our values. And we're showing them in real time what it looks like to live with inside of that value or go outside of that boundary line that we've established around that value. Then we're getting their connectivity, we're getting their buy-in of what it looks like afterwards. What do you want me to do to support you to that deeper understanding, to coming back with inside of that value? Okay. And then we get to follow through. That's the biggest part, is the follow through, right? Whew, that was a lot. I hope that was really helpful. I love talking about this stuff because it gives us, for me, it's always like we need to have options in our brain, because the traditional parenting brain shows one option: punish, 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 punish. You shame, just make them feel really negative. That's going to teach the lesson. But honestly, it's just going to send them, they're like, I hate my mom now. Like, that did nothing. And my older son will tell me this time and time again: punishments teach me nothing. They just make me angrier. And then I'm more confused. And I'm like, that's actually really wise. Because punishments just made me super confused. I remember when I was swearing as a kid and I got Tabasco sauce dumped all over my tongue, I just wanted to be like, fuck this. Sorry to say, but I was like, it didn't make me want to stop swearing. It just made me angrier. And now my tongue was on fire and now I hated hot sauce, right? So let's really be specific. How do we want to teach? Do we want to teach through pain? Do we want to teach through shame? Or do we want to teach through working, supporting, creating a system, practicing, examples, right? That to me feels like such a better teacher. And it feels so much better for us, right? Then our nervous systems get a chance to slow down as we're taking our children through this process. And we can really just set each other up for a really connected, successful relationship. All right. I hope that was very nourishing, very helpful. And I really, really hope you join me inside the Fast Way to Regulate Challenge, because we will be diving into so much of this stuff where you get to really create systems that are structured, that are helpful, that are clear. So boundaries don't become so hard, so they're not so muddied, so that you actually understand what to do. You're on top of it. You have very smart protocols and systems. P.S. That's a plug for day 25. That was a challenge to film, but it has a very, very smart, it's an acronym, very smart system of how to communicate with your kids, stay regulated, and teach a lesson. All right. I will see you inside the challenge. Don't miss it. grab it in the show notes. You can either join my community membership and it will be there ready for you to go, or you can get this as a standalone challenge. Your choice, but please don't miss it because it is a game changer for both your nervous system and your child. All right, I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Response-Able Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.